Cars, trucks, vans, after over a century of innovation, automakers all agreed to put the engine in the front. Why do we do this? What about cars where you pop the trunk? Porsches, Volkswagens. What about those cars with the engines in the middle? What about supercars? Rear engine vehicles represent some of the best selling and best performing cars out there. So I have to ask the question, why are most car engines in the front? Buckle up, babe. It's WheelHouse time. Thanks to Blinkist for sponsoring today's episode. If you know me, you know I love to read. I'm a registered word perv. When I was in college, sometimes I was so busy, I couldn't find the time to read an entire book. I'm still just as busy, which is why I now use the Blinkist app. Blinkist summarizes and condenses books into just 15-minute versions that you can read or listen to podcast style. With over 3,000 nonfiction titles, there's something for everyone, which is why there are more than 12 million active Blinkist users. That's awesome. I'm on a self-improvement kick lately, so I've been reading the insights on books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and The 5 a.m. Club. I still gotta work on the 5 a.m. part, I get up at 8. And I love how concise the summaries are, and the best part, these titles are available on or offline. The first 100 people to click the link below are gonna get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. You also get 25% off if you want the full membership. That's a great deal. Support the companies that help support Donut. Thank you, Blinkist, for sponsoring this episode. The answer is more of a story than an answer. It's a wild ride through automotive history, from Germany to Detroit to Ralph Nader. But first, if you want the short, boring answer, here it is, okay? Front engine, front wheel drive vehicles are more forgiving to steer since the weight of the engine is over the front wheels. That gives them more traction. That means it's easier for your less talented drivers to not spin out on icy roads. It's also more economical to cool the engine if it's in the front, so it's cheaper to manufacture. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Thanks. If you're still here, that means you want the good answer. So come with me, let's go back in time. In the 19th century, most horseless carriages had rear-mounted engines with rear-wheel drive. In 1895, French automaker Panhard made the first front-mounted engine with rear-wheel drive. To accomplish this, they invented the modern transmission. This design was superior to rear-mounted designs at the time because it distributed the weight evenly between the front and rear wheels, which improved the handling and gave the front wheels more traction. I'm not sure how much handling is required when you're traveling at the speed of smell, but it was a huge accomplishment. Front engine rear wheel drive became the standard, with Ford cranking out 16.5 million Model Ts from 1908 to 1927, and all other car makers followed suit. In 1934, Mercedes-Benz looked at engine placement and asked a very German question. Why don't we try it in the trunk, yeah? This rear-end freakfest produced the Model 130. Czech manufacturer Tatra followed suit and started producing rear-engine cars. The rear-engine design race peaked in 1938 when Volkswagen released the Beetle, designed by Ferdinand Porsche. Yeah, that Porsche. Tatra immediately sued VW due to the Beetle's similarity to Tatra's rear-engined V570 and 97. VW was able to avoid a lawsuit by Germany invading Czechoslovakia. They did wind up paying a settlement after the war though, so remember guys, war can't solve all your problems. The VW Beetle was cheap and economical. The original Beetle got 32 miles to the gallon and sold like toilet paper in a quarantine. Nope. The original Beetle got 32 miles to the gallon and sold like Animal Crossing in a pandemic. After the success of the Beetle, everybody was dabbling with backdoor bangers. Rear engine, rear wheel drive cars were great for acceleration since the engine weight is right on the rear tires. The main problem though is oversteer. Since all the weight is in the back, tight turns tend to make the rear of the car swing around in a fashion some refer to as fucking sick, dude. Many tried, but few succeeded in making a rear-engined, rear-wheel drive vehicle that handled well. They accelerate like a dragster and kind of handle like a dragster. The first real success in that department was the Porsche 911. Yes, that Porsche. The 911 came out in 1964 with a flat 6 in the back. And they got around the oversteer issue by keeping the car low and the wheelbase shorter than the Beetles. That's right, shorter. Some other popular rear-engine vehicles include the DeLorean DMC-12 and the Alpine A110. Not surprisingly, these cars are two-door coupes, okay? Rear-engined, rear-wheel drive cars pretty much had to be, until the Corvair. It's the only American car with an air-cooled rear engine. An engine that sat behind the rear tires meant no floor bump to get in the way of your feet. The only problem though, it had a pretty long wheelbase for rear engine cars, 108 inches, 20 inches longer than the 911. Nevertheless, they sold like beefcakes laced with gravy. One buyer was a young politician by the name Ralph Nader. After driving the car, he became concerned about the car's handling ability. He published the book Unsafe at Any Speed in 1965. The book scrutinized the entire automotive industry, but was especially critical of the Corvair, calling it a, quote, one-car accident. Most people just leave a bad Yelp review, but that's not Nader's style, baby. Nader gang. According to the book, the Corvair's swing axle rear suspension would cause the rear tires to, quote, tuck under around turns, which would cause the car to drift. And since the front suspension had no anti-roll bar, the Corvair would be prone to rollovers. A sedan with rollovers. That's insane. By the time the book came out, Chevy had already redesigned the Corvair with a four-wheel independent suspension, but it was too late. Unsafe at Any Speed was a bombshell, and people took notice. Corvair sales were cut in half in 1966. People were afraid to buy rear-engine cars that were unsafe at any speed, and I don't blame them. Chevy decided to move on and end production after the 1969 model year. Nice. And Ralph Nader went on to run for president like a million times. Nader gang. In the meantime, automakers kept messing with front engine layouts. The British Motor Corporation asked a very British question. Why don't we make our automobiles as small as possible so we stay out of other people's way? Because we're polite and meek and love to queue. That's my British accent, I'm sorry. That's right, I'm talking about the Mini. Designer Alex Isagonis had the bright idea of engineering the transmission into the oil sump, flipping the engine around to minimize the engine's footprint so you could squeeze it under a hood that was a little over 4 feet wide. The engine could only make 33 horsepower, but since the car was so tiny and light, it was enough power for the Brits. I mean, I really want one of these things. Transverse engines allowed the hood to be shortened and for passenger space to be maximized inside. Plenty of companies from Fiat to Volvo to even Land Rover use transverse engines, but none as awesomely as the 1965 Lamborghini Mira, which used a V12 transverse engine mid-mounted behind the two seats. That's right, the transverse engine went from this to this in 6 years. Anyway, back in Detroit, the big three were focusing on the front engine rear-wheel drive layout, producing some cars you might have heard of, all right? Like Mustang, the Camaro, the Firebird, the Charger, etc. With the engine in the front, there was no danger of oversteer, unless you push that gas, baby. That's what I'm talking about. They actually have a bit of understeer, but the engine weight improves the front tire traction, so it's easier for your average driver to corner. It's also cheaper and easier to put a radiator in the front of the car, and running hoses all the way to the back sucks from a design, efficiency, and maintenance standpoint. So it makes sense to have your radiator and engine in the same place. Speaking of understeer, shout out to my Miata gang. Speaking of which, check out our new show, Money Pit. Zach Job does that exact thing to a Miata. I can't wait to see this thing finished. I can't wait to drive it. Hopefully he lets me. Thus began the muscle car era, with the big three and AMC trying to cram as many horsepowers as possible into a car. But when you want more horsies, that usually means a bigger, heavier engine. As engines got beefier, you got a little more power, more torque, yeah, all right, we'll keep that. But less weight on the back wheels, which decreases rear wheel traction and acceleration. To keep some weight on the back tires, you have to move the engine further back, and you push the passengers back towards the rear axle, and you're left with an enormous hood. Okay, I'm talking 80s Camaros, 70s Firebirds, 70s Chargers, pretty much every muscle car ever. They got some big ass, long ass hoods, okay? If you push the engine far enough back, you actually get a front mid-engine car, okay? If the engine is between the front axle and the passenger compartment, it's technically mid-engine, but front mid-engine. Eventually, you're gonna say enough is enough. If you're already sacrificing passenger area and wanna maximize power and handling, you have to rethink engine placement. Take the Corvette, for example, okay? The C7 Corvette was basically the best front-engine, rear-wheel drive car that Chevy could design. But this year, they're finally delivering the mid-engine Corvette. It's called the C8. Not only does it offer up to 700 horsepower, rumored, it's gonna be the best handling Corvette ever. So why does moving the Corvette's engine back improve handling? With the engine behind the two front seats, but in front of the rear axle, the Corvette's center of gravity is in the middle of the car, which means a lower polar moment of inertia. I'm sorry, did you think you were getting through this without learning some rotational dynamics? You're in the science zone, bitch. All right, so the polar moment of inertia. Think about a figure skater spinning, all right? When they pull their arms in, they spin quicker. Think about you sitting in an office chair spinning around. When you pull your arms in, you spin faster. And if you put your arms and legs out, you spin slower. Why is that? The same principle applies to cars. If your car's center of mass is centrally located, it can change direction quickly and with less effort. A mid-engine layout also improves braking. With the weight of the engine distributed evenly across all four tires, all four brakes help equally. That's why mid-engine vehicles are the best handling, most expensive two-seat vehicles on the planet. You know, your BMW i8s, your Audi R8s, your Porsche Caymans, most Ferraris and Lamborghinis, McLarens, Lotuses, or is it Loti? I don't know. Anyway, to sum it up, let's run down the pros and cons of each engine location, okay? Rear engine, okay? They got great acceleration, but there's less weight on the front tires, so you're more likely to Tokyo drift if you don't know what you're doing. Mid-engine, awesome handling and braking, but no room for extra passengers or luggage. And generally, they're expensive as shit. Front engine, they're prone to a bit of understeer, but maximum traction on the front tires. They're spacious and they're cheap to build. Automakers have proven that they can make rear and mid-engine designs work super well. But most customers want a real second row of seats, and they generally don't need all that performance for driving the chillin' to Chili's. So they opt for a cheaper, more spacious front-engine car that's good enough. You know what? Money talks. The front-engine cars have won, at least for now. I want to hear from you. What are your experiences with driving rear-engine cars? Have you ever driven an exotic with a mid-engine? Do you have an engine placement preference? Does anyone have a C8 I can borrow? Hey, thanks for watching. I really hope you're getting through quarantine all right. If this video looks a little less good, that's because I filmed it in my apartment on a webcam. This quarantine thing has been crazy. I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys. It's weird and lonely for me too, but we're gonna do our best here at Donut to keep cranking out the content for you guys, keep your minds off things, because you know what? That's my purpose in life, is